That's a transition to hell. You're going to hell, and your bosses are leading you right down the tubes. You shouldn't pay your fees. They get these big fees from all of their workers.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
The last thing that I wanted to talk about today is the back and forth on between Trump and Shawn Fain. And I've alluded to it throughout the program, but I just wanted to show you because it is so ridiculous. The obfuscation and the misdirection about where people need to be pointing their anger, what they need to be upset about. So let's take a look at this first clip from Donald Trump that he put out on Twitter last week about the UAW negotiations with the Big Three.
Race and an outrage beyond belief. Auto workers are getting totally ripped off by crooked Joe Biden and also their horrendous leadership, because these people are allowing our country to do these electric vehicles that very few people want.
That's insane. Like the idea that, oh, you gotta, it's a disgrace what's happening to auto workers because of electric vehicles. Like, no, it's not in isolation the idea that electric vehicles are being built. The issue is that they're being built by a lower tier of workers that are undercutting UAW wages. And that is something that actually he supports. And we'll get to that here in just a second. But yes, it is an issue. There is an issue with the Biden administration in not having enough strings attached to all this money that's going out. And so what has the UAW's response been? They've been calling Biden out on that. They've been saying, if you're going to be subsidizing an industry, you got to make sure that the workers are taken care of. The UAW is one of the only major unions that has not, in fact, endorsed Joe Biden at this point because of that. I don't know if they're going to or not. Maybe they won't. They're not going to endorse Trump, obviously. But they may not endorse Biden if he doesn't get his act together on these electric vehicles. But it's not them being produced in isolation. It's they need to be produced by people with good paying, high quality jobs. And so that's the issue with the electric vehicles. And that's what these, politics poisoned brains are going to, that's what it does to you. You see a conflict between a worker and a company, and you think, oh, who should you vote for in 18 months, in 12 months from now? This negotiation is going to be long gone. Contract's going to be long gone. It will be decided this week. The result of these contract negotiations are going to decide how much these automakers are going to be able to outsource, not the election in November. And so, but he's not pointing the auto workers towards getting involved in their contract campaign. He's just trying to get them to vote for himself. And so there are few things that make me more mad than politicians using workers as a shield when you know good and damn well they couldn't give a shit about you. And we know that because look at Trump's record. Look at Trump's record, right? Coal miners were on strike for 2 years. He didn't do anything about it. Now, he was out of office, but he didn't even so much as try to do what he's doing right now. Trying to make it an issue about Trump versus Biden. I care more about the auto workers than Biden does. Coal miners, a perfect chance for him to come out and do this. Coal miners in Alabama, no less. Coal miners in Alabama that supported him, no less. Couldn't be bothered to talk about it because it's not in the news, because he doesn't actually care about people. He just sees whatever's on his TV and he reacts to it like, just not even like a sentient being, like just instinct impulse kind of thing. It's gross. So here's another clip from that video that he pointed out. Let's play that he played. Let's play this.
But there's no such thing as fair transition that destroys over 100,000 auto manufacturing jobs. It'll be much more than that. Wastes tens of billions of dollars that should be going to the workers and makes new cars entirely unaffordable for the middle class. That's a transition to hell. You're going to hell, and your bosses are leading you right down the tubes. You shouldn't pay your fees. They get these big fees from all of their workers, and it doesn't matter how bad they are, they'll endorse a Democrat, even though the Democrat's selling you down the tubes.
Like I said, they haven't endorsed a Democrat yet. They haven't endorsed Joe Biden. And they're not going to unless he earns their endorsement. And he's not talking about, remember, he's not talking about anything about we want to make sure that these electric jobs are good jobs. He's just saying, oh, electric bad, electric bad, electric bad. Obviously, the industry is moving in that way. Whether or not we subsidize it, it doesn't even matter. The electric car industry is going to continue to make up more of the market share of the auto industry. The question is, are these workers going to be paid well? Are they going to be taken care of? Trump's not even acting like that question is on the table. He's just saying, should we make electric cars or should we not? Who knows? It's absolutely crazy. And so let's play this last clip from Trump.
So to every auto worker, I stand in total solidarity with you in your fight against Joe Biden's job-killing Green New Deal insanity. It's insanity. When I am your president, I will deliver higher wages for auto workers. I will protect your jobs. I will end Joe Biden's catastrophic electric vehicle mandate. And by the way, if you want an electric car, you're going to get it. But you're going to be able to get all other types of cars, types of vehicles that you want. And on day one, you're going to be back in business with me, and those factories are going to start opening up again. Remember, when I got elected, I told you all about this in the campaign. And when I got elected, hardly a car company built outside of this country. I stopped it. They didn't go to Mexico anymore. I said, if you go to Mexico, I'm putting a big tariff. You'll make a car, you can have a 25% tariff if you send that car back into the United States. I stopped it. Well, right now they're doing it again.
Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
Yeah, and I mean, he's just totally bald-faced lying, and Fain points that out. Somebody asks him about, this Trump versus Biden stuff on an interview that he's giving. When he's talking about real issues, he's talking about materially what kind of wages are we going to see auto workers get over the next 4 years. And somebody asked him this at the end of the interview. So let's play Fain's response.
But it is relevant here. I want to ask you this. Yeah. You guys, I think, have withheld your endorsement so far for President Biden in a second term. Do you worry? He said, I'm super pro-union, President Biden. Do you worry? And does it go into your thinking that a strike could embarrass President Biden?
I don't think a strike would embarrass President Biden. I think a strike can reaffirm to him of where the working class people in this country stand. And it's time for politicians in this country to pick a side. Either you stand for a billionaire class where everybody else gets left behind, or you stand for the working class. The working class people vote. And as far as our endorsements go, as we've said, our endorsements are going to be earned, not freely given, and actions are going to dictate who we endorse. And I know the other candidate, wanted to come out the other day and talk about how our members are crazy for not backing him. But, there's two things I want to talk about with that person real quick, if I can have a moment. It's just, I'll never forget leading up to the 2016 election, that candidate talking about doing a rotation where they need to come to places like Michigan and the Midwest and send our jobs somewhere else where they pay less money and make us be begging for our jobs down the road. That's not something that works for working class people, and sure as hell not for UAW workers. And he was on the air the other day saying that, encouraging people to stop paying union dues. So that's not someone that stands for a good standard of living.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And when he mentioned that about, Trump supporting getting good paying jobs out of Michigan, that actually kind of shocked me. I was like, usually he'll at least say that, oh no, I support good, I support good jobs in the United States. And so I looked into it. And here's what I found. Back in 2015, the Detroit News interviewed Donald Trump. And Trump said that the Ford CEO Mark Fields wrote to him explaining the automaker's planned $2.5 billion investment in Mexico. And after Trump criticized Ford in June. And here's what Trump suggested to Ford. He was like, okay, look, this is what I think about your plan, and here's something that I would recommend instead. Move jobs out of Michigan into lower paying states, into lower wage states. And that's exactly the problem with these companies, right? And the way that they treat Southern workers. And I mean, the way that they treat Mexican workers, right? They treat Southern workers as the last stop on the way to Mexico. They have no respect for us. They only want to use us to undercut our sisters and brothers in Michigan and Indiana and Ohio and Wisconsin, right? And it is up to us to stand against the evil billionaires like the executives and shareholders at Ford, and also like Donald Trump, who is suggesting utilizing us to undercut other UAW members, who is suggesting using Southern workers, non-union, presumably Southern workers, to undercut these other people who are making these cars. So here again, he's not talking about, I want to make good jobs. I want to make sure that everybody's taken care of. Here's a way that you can exploit people and take advantage of people, but you can still tout American made. I mean, that is just, wicked kind of stuff, right? And that's the whole issue with Trumpism. There's no actual concern for the people that he's trying to appeal to. And that's kind of it in a nutshell. But it also reminded me, when I was thinking about Trump's manufacturing record, it did remind me in particular of the Carrier factory in Indiana, where he went before the election and said, don't sell your jobs, don't sell your jobs, or don't sell your houses. Don't sell your houses. We're going to keep this plant here. And Indiana and the United States gave $7 million to Carrier. More than 600 people were still laid off at that Carrier facility in Indiana. In fact, outside of Carrier, in Indiana alone, more than 20 manufacturers have moved production to foreign countries since Trump took office. This was an article from 2019 that I'm pulling from. In Indiana alone, more than 20 manufacturers have moved production to foreign countries since Trump took office, resulting in at least 3,000 job losses, according to a trade adjustment assistance filings with the Labor Department. That's about 4 times as many jobs as Trump, quote unquote, saved at Carrier, because the issue at Carrier was they were going to close the whole facility, and then there you go. I saved all your jobs. And he only saved like 50% of the jobs at the Carrier facility. Hundreds of jobs were still shipped to Mexico. While the president kept pledges to reduce regulations, cut corporate taxes, and renegotiate trade agreements, those steps have not resulted in the manufacturing resurgence that he promised. Today, this is in 2019, remember, about 800 workers whose jobs Carrier had planned to send to Mexico remain at the plant, but they are now required to work 8 to 10-hour shifts 7 days a week. Many haven't had a single day off in more than a month. And this didn't just happen in Indiana. In Michigan, there were 10,200 fewer jobs, fewer manufacturing workers in the state in February of 2020. So this is before the pandemic, remember. There were some articles that tried to talk about, the manufacturing difference, and it included losses from the pandemic, and I didn't think that was really fair. That doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. So I only took numbers from before the pandemic. There were 10,000 fewer jobs in Michigan in February, 10,000 fewer manufacturing jobs in Michigan in February of 2020 than there were in February of 2019. In Ohio, pre-pandemic, it had 2,200 more workers in February in 2019 than it did in February of 2020. So again, Trump's record manufacturing is not really that good. So you really gotta, the union is the thing that is going to actually get you're actually going to be able to fight back against these companies and take what you're worth. And somebody asked in the chat, what's to stop these three potato? What's the stop? That's a great username. What's to stop these big three from shipping 150,000 jobs overseas? And then there you go. And the thing that stops that is obviously that costs a lot of money to build all those facilities and other plants. That's why they don't do it immediately, right? If they could do that, if they could just ship all of these jobs over to Mexico, they would have already done it. But you got to think about sunk costs and materials and land and all of this kind of stuff that they've already bought. And so, you do kind of have to basically gradually do this kind of stuff. And that's why they do it gradually instead of all at once. Is because it would be a huge cost to move everything all at once. And the way that you keep them from doing it gradually is by fighting with the workers in the United States and in Canada and in Mexico to make sure that the contract has protections against outsourcing, protections against whipsawing, protections against using workers in lower paying regions against others. That's the way to do that, not by voting for Trump, and not even by voting for Biden. You gotta do a union about it. Is the thing. Working Bulldogs is a Unifor member from Canada. Remember, had a couple of comments from that person earlier in the program. Our contract expires 4 days after the UAW, the Canada Auto Workers contract does. We're all watching closely, and I'm looking forward to seeing what y'all do up in Canada. And hopefully there is a lot of talk going on between Unifor, the Canadian Auto Workers, and the UAW. Shawn Fain said that there are, so I'm inclined to believe them.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.